Hey, welcome, Doooovid here. Going to play some chess. Open it up to anyone who wants to come on and talk. I might even hand out the link and just keep my mind sharp. And the chess program at the Detroit Institute of Arts isn't playing today, so I thought I'd just go and talk through some chess. So I got the screen share working. Look at some tournaments. So there's a 1-minute tournament starting in 15 minutes. So let's look at some Puzzle Rush, where I'm just going to try to solve some quick puzzles. Keep my mind sharp. Recommend people want to get better at chess. Simple made in 2, made in 1. Another easy made in 1. Okay. Oh, bishop takes queen. Yeah, simple. Okay, and then the rook hangs. Discovered attack. Check and win the exchange. Okay, simple made in 1. Check and pick off the bishop. Simple check and mate. So let me see, push the pawn probably. You probably take, and if he takes with the rook, queen. Okay. Rook takes pawn, skewer to the pin the queen. Just queen takes rook. Bishop takes knight, attacking the queen, and then mate. Their knight checkmate. The bishop's covering the escape squares. Knight, just knight takes bishop and forking the rooks. Take the rook. Okay, rook takes first, and that's check and mate. Oh, well, it's not mate, but okay. Yeah, just take the bishop, and then the bishop takes pawn, winning the rook. Takes the knight and comes back, win the piece. Is there some type of skewer? See the queen and the rook on the file. I'm not seeing this. I guess just take the rook. Yeah, that was simple. I don't know why I missed that. Okay, queen check and knight check. Knight takes knight, probably. Queen check. You just block. Knight takes knight. Knight takes. No. Okay, I got one wrong. You get up to 3 wrong here. So what do I have here? Probably just trap the queen. Probably rook check. Yeah, rook check, and then rook winning the queen. Okay, yeah, just bring the bishop back, check and mate. No, knight check. Probably rook takes pawn. Yeah, take that and win the queen. Okay, takes rook. Rook takes pawn. Not sure. Take there. So you'll probably take the bishop and the rook hangs. Okay. Probably push the pawn, although I'm not sure if there's a quicker one. No, I was wrong. Okay, probably rook check, although I'm not sure the follow-up. Rook check, queen takes, take. You can stop the pawn easily. Okay, rook takes rook, queen takes rook. Does that help? Knight here. No. No. Okay, yeah, rook there. Skewer, check, take. Okay, is this a smothered mate? Well, okay, a knight check here, and then mate. Rook there. Well, I guess a knight check there, and then I got all these rook checks, although they may not lead to mate. Rook here. Okay, wasn't quick enough. Okay, so I got one person watching. Shalom Tom. Yeah, I tried doing this the other day, and I was just too slow. So my record is 35. So it's pretty. 35 is pretty hard. You see, that's good practice. So the 1 minute tournament is coming up in 10 minutes. Let me try one more quick puzzle rush. Nakamura does this and gets in the 50s. So you can see the top players getting. I'm not even in the top 50s. 35 my highest, and these are internationally ranked players. At the top. So Doooovid is good at chess. Better than the common man by far, but not on a competitive nature. Okay, well, I think I just take. That's simple. Pawn push, and if he takes the rook, you just take the rook. It's a free rook. Free rook. Move, check and win the rook. Well, probably knight check is mate. Bishop check and mate. Okay, so rook check he has to take, and the queen hangs. Queen check, rook check, and mate. Mate in one. So probably check with the queen, and then the bishop picks up the queen. So let's see, rook check. Probably. Oh, I'm in check. So I probably got to go back to defend the rook. He takes pawn. Okay. He just rook takes knight, win a piece. Okay. Probably queen check. He just gives up the queen right away. Okay. Probably rook check and then mate. Rook check and then the queen hangs, but he has to take the queen and then win the rook. Where's the mate? Okay, queen check. Rook, yeah, rook takes knight and then that mate. Okay. Pawn here. Pawn takes, pawn takes. Probably. Nope, wasn't it. Okay, queen check and mate. Okay, take and pick off the rook. Okay, king here's bishop takes. Probably take. Queen takes. Take. Okay. So knight check here. Check there and mate. Okay. Let me see. Rook check doesn't help. This rook check doesn't help. Rook takes knight. Probably, yeah, rook takes knight. Okay. Yeah, take and mate. Rook takes, is that, see, too many checks or ideas. Probably rook takes. Even rook here. Yeah, he's good. Okay. We got mate here. Yeah, bishop here. No, bishop here.
And he takes with the knight to drive mate. Your bishop, he takes with the knight. I don't see this. Or is his queen trapped? I don't see it. Yeah, so now bishop here. Yeah, I'm with the queen. Okay. Probably take. Oh, wrong way. Yeah, I'm getting down on time. I'm trying to do these quickly. Okay, you take and then I pick. Okay, did that way. Here. Okay. Check. Bishop there. I get bishop here and then pick off this pawn. Takes there. So bishop check. Probably check. Okay, takes the knight. What do I have? Okay, here I'm threatening mate and win the knight. Knight there. So probably knight check here and then bishop. That's actually mate. Fork. Oh, I should have taken with the bishop. Okay, so that's 30. It's pretty good. You know, it's not even enough to get on the leaderboard, but yeah, it's pretty good. You know, it's good practice, good mental freshness to do this. Hello, it's Michael, Jam, Richatelli, Tom, if you're joining. If any of you want the link or you have questions, you know, I thought I'd just stream a little bit of chess, keep my mind fresh. That's what Doooovid does to keep my mind going in a logical, you know, pattern to just be able to think quickly and keep on the top of my game in terms of mental freshness and you know, keeping my mind alive. So let's look at the tournament coming up. So you got a 1 minute tournament starting in 4 minutes, 3 minute tournament starting in 9 minutes. I'm going to try the 1 minute tournament. Starts in a little bit over 4 minutes. So yeah, I guess I'll just talk a second. So I had a pretty good stream the other day. I'm pretty happy with you know, being on No More News, and you know, I had my roommate moving out soon, so I think I'm going to be trying to do a lot more streaming. So I'm a little bit excited about that, and enjoying this tournament. Give my usual God bless, good fun, and mental exercise. So I have a lot of research I'm doing. I got a lot of books on my desk. So, you know, anyone, you know, seeing, I'm reading, I want to read this one, Chaos Monkeys, about Silicon Valley. I got this one on chess history, Chess Artist, about, you know, chess history. I'm reading this one on the origins of the Palestinian conflict. I got biblical books I'm reading, all types of stuff. And then I'm rereading Francis Crick's The Astonishing Hypothesis. I got, you know, Roger Penrose, The Road to Reality, another book on the precarious human role in a mechanistic universe. I got a bunch of books like, you know, Fundamentalism in the State. I've been reading these books on like engineering and history. I'm still in the middle of this, you know, compendium of philosophy of mathematics. And I have a whole bunch of books on like architecture and urban planning that unfortunately, you know, that's my training and profession. Another book, you know, short history of technology. I have a lot of books on the history of India that, you know, hopefully I'll be able to get through. But, you know, time is short, so there's a lot to do, and I got to just keep my mind fresh. So it's very difficult to, you know, not get mentally overloaded. So that's why I'm playing chess right now, just to try to keep my mind as fresh as possible. And, you know, obviously I tutor chess and coach chess in Detroit, but currently right now there's, you know, no club this week. It's a summer program. So the kids who come in the summer generally have a, you know, pretty good chance of improving, getting better. Had the Ratha Yatha, you know, people know Lord Jagannath, the Hare Krishna movement. So yesterday we had the Ratha Yatha at the Paniak Parashakti Temple, a good celebration. If anyone's interested in that, you know, I'll be streaming more and more of that type stuff. This week is the one in Lansing, and then the big one from the Detroit ISKCON in Novi. They'll be coming up. So, that's what I do in the summer. I enjoy that. So, anyone possibly wants to come on, I'm willing to chat. So this is going to be, 1 minute chess, which is extremely high pace, high in, I showed last time the computer analysis to try to technically, get my game up. So you see that, I've been winning. So if you look in, my awards, I've done, pretty good. So you see trophies. I have 7 first place in these tournaments, sometimes like 15-0, 13-1 and 1, 13-1. So when I've been playing, I've been winning about half of these tournaments. So that's relatively, I'm pretty happy with my playing these. This is going to start in 45 seconds, and be very quick. So I'll try to talk through and kind of like freshen my mind and talk about the role of kind of some spiritual, like chess. Like there's historical, King Solomon claims that King Solomon invented chess, although the likely origins comes from India. You talk about the faculties of the soul, the faculty of the intellect, the king, and the the queen, the mental, and different faculties of the senses that possibly comes from Zoroastrianism. Chess's first recorded mentions in the Vedas. So here we start in 3 seconds. So let's go. Okay. So you got me playing the number 2 seat. He doesn't fight for the center right away, so it gives me full control of the center. So, good sign. It's not necessarily, it gives me a slight advantage that he just didn't fight for the center right away. Okay, I'll trade there. Push that pawn, open up. Okay. Okay, I'm on his rook. His knight. He's probably going to push the pawn. See knight there. I got my rook coming to the file. Bring my knight in. Okay, let me get my knight in. Take that. Yeah, a nice tactic if you tried to do something there. So let me. Oh, that didn't work. I just gave him my queen. That was horrible. He didn't even see it. He could have taken my queen for free. That was horrible. Now my knight's defending it. So that's the fun of 1 minute, saying that that was just bad play. He could have won, but, because it's the very quick time control, people don't always recognize the mistakes that are made. So that's the, the fun of 1 minute. And oops. You can just take that pawn. Yeah, I mean, making simple mistakes, but that's the nature of these games. That's why I'm playing to keep it. He didn't even take that. Okay, he resigns. Get a new game. So slightly. That was the number 2 player I beat off the first game. So he got me in the lead. I don't know if he's going to try for this pawn push, open up. It's a decent strategy. Push this pawn, get in, bring my knight to this square. Pick off this pawn. My king should be safe here. Okay, that's fine. He gives me the queen. Okay, hopefully he'll resign. He doesn't resign. Let's keep pushing. Keep pushing it down. I'll even take that. You got knight here, knight here. When it's over, his chance of winning on time is very little. Oops. Yeah, it's not going to help him. Okay, he's got the right to play it out, but he's got basically no chance here. Check and mate. Okay. So I'm in second place. Someone has a slight ahead of me. Oh, I got a higher rated opponent, so this guy's higher rated than me. Okay. It's not working out so well here. Yeah, I messed up. You could take that pawn. Goes like that. Yes, and I'm just down a pawn for nothing. And maybe I could get a time win, although I do get my rook to the 7th file. Okay, do I win a pawn? Does he bring his rook back to defend? Okay, let me get my king in there. Oh, that was bad. Okay. Yeah, he fell for mate. Got lucky there. He walked into mate. That was really lucky. Actually, so I beat the highest rated player in it. There's one guy 800 ahead of me, so he was playing quickly. So now I got an official. This is a woman's FM. So this is one of the better women players in the world, and anyone knows anything about chess, they have a special system that makes it slightly easier for women to have titles or special recognition for being very good at chess. And also, the nature of these is you get more points for winning every single game. So basically, I need to win every single game. Okay, she lets me check and win this pawn. I should probably take it. Bring another check. Knight in there. I don't know, that's free. Check again. This way. Oh, I gave her a bishop of opposite color. That was probably a bad idea. Not sure why she did that. Let's get her knight. Okay, that was bad of her part. And I just got to be careful to win this off quickly. At best, she has horrible. Oh, man. This is horrible. Now I'm lucky to get a draw. That was horrible. I drew top woman player. She got a draw off me, but now I lose my streak for winning. So I still get 1 point, but you get more points when you win in the streak. So if I'd won, I would have got 4 points. I got 1 point. So now if I win this game, I only get 2 points. So that's the way the scoring system here works. And now I just played this poorly for no reason. Played this really bad. I'm getting manhandled. This player's pretty weak, and I'm just I play it really bad. Inaccuracies there. Okay, got lucky there. Threatening this pawn. Okay. Push this pawn. Pawn. I don't know what to do, man. I'm gonna have to get lucky time win here. Gotta go for a time win of some sort here. Okay, yeah, I got lucky there. I messed that one up pretty bad. So I'm not even in the top 10 anymore because that just one draw. So that's the unfortunate. That's what makes this fun, because it's more about winning as many games as possible quickly. And so these are pretty fun in that sense. Threats here. Thinking. Okay. Yeah, I've misplayed this, but you know, he doesn't know what to do with the short time problem. Oh! I just gave up the rook for nothing. That was horrible. Okay, I gave it back in exchange, but that's what, you know, say enjoy this. It's more study and playing quick. Okay, it was a lucky time win. Now I'm back on the board. Okay, cheapo. He tried for a cheapo to. I mean, it's a decent tactic, but you know, just hoping I'd miss a one move, you know, stupid tactic. But I didn't fall for it. I mean, it's not completely over for him, but you know, I just got a piece for nothing. Occasionally, like in very time trouble at the very end, I'll try things like that also. But you know, generally, I don't play for cheapos. I like attacking. I like relatively, you know, taking advantage of the quick time control to play more attacking, you know, difficult chess. But I don't really go for cheapos like that. but it's a common motif. There is some merit to the cheapo. Yeah, that would have been difficult for him. Yeah, that was probably dumb. Oh, okay. Well, he gives up easily. As usually, these guys don't like resigning. So if he resigned, like, I would be able to move on to the next game because these are about how many you can win as quickly as possible. But, you know, it's tough. A lot of these guys just don't resign. They don't have to. But here comes mate coming up. Check 1, 2, and mate. Pre-move it. Okay, I'm back in third place. Oh, this is my friend. This guy appears to be a master, but he's always got a very low rating and bullet. So he's probably just slow. He's probably good over the board, but relatively slow. So I played him multiple times, and he's got a little bit of difficulty on the time end. So let's see. Takes. Yeah. I don't even mean to trade queens. I don't want to trade queens, really. It's not that great for me. This is looking pretty drawish, but I'll probably be able to squeeze out a time win. Bring my king over to free up a rook. That's fine. Okay. See if I could run my king through. Yeah, this guy's just a little bit slow. Like, he's a strong player, but he's on the tad bit slow side. So he'll get that pawn, but I got a free pass pawn. He's gonna have some hard time. He just run his rook over, but okay. Yeah, he flags. Now I'm back into second place. Okay, a few seconds in the beginning. This guy doesn't play for the center. Take that. It's probably pretty bad on his part. Whoa, thank you for the free queen. It's just the pressure to move immediately, and he did not, fell under the pressure. It's very difficult. You got to, make moves instantaneously, and so he just put his queen for nothing, which is pretty common. Unfortunately, I do that also sometimes, but he doesn't want to resign. He doesn't have to. Say, like, unfortunately, these guys almost never resign. But I got a whole queen for nothing. So, he really should resign. He's down on time. He's not really helping himself, but he wants to play out to mate. That's his prerogative. Okay, check, and mate. Hey, Fork Shark. Nice to see you joining me. Hopefully we're going to
start talking stocks again. I'm sorry about your channel. Said maybe you're welcome to stream on my channel. So Doooovid has now moved into first place. There's over 300 players on the server right now. So thank God Doovovid is in first place of over 300 players. So, so I'm doing this largely to keep my mind sharp. Okay. Oh, he made a big mistake. Check, and now his queen's not defended. He resigns quickly. That'll give me a huge first place. Okay. Check. Okay, he resigns. So now I got a solid lead in first place, 31 points. I'm over a full game ahead of the player behind me. Anyone could come back and I lose one game. So here's a player closer to my rating. Okay, try to castle's queen side and try to discourage that. What's going on here? Not sure. I'm down on time. This guy was playing a little bit quicker than me, so careful. Okay, thank God he makes a mistake. Yeah, he was playing very quick, but you can see that he was possibly not playing the best moves. Be careful about time. You gotta be very careful on time here. Whoa, yeah, very lucky time win there. I was down to 0.2 seconds. Whoever this person was, where Slovenia was slightly quicker than me. So thank God. Oh, I got an opponent from Israel. Playing someone from Israel. See what happens. My friend from Israel. I played relatively not the greatest in this opening. We'll see what happens. I got a reasonable time advantage, but I played secondary best moves at best here. Okay, leaves up. Let me get my knight to the center. Okay, he just gives me a pawn for nothing when he gets that pawn, but it's a weaker player, so even though I'm in a worse position here, you see he just didn't know how to handle it in the best way, although, unfortunately I'm actually in a worse position here. Well, the time advantage is real. Okay, that's with check.
Go here. Bishop takes bishop would be with check. Be careful. You might. Oh, that's bad. That's not what I wanted to do. Time is extremely low. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be lucky to get a time win here. Just throwing a spite check here. Okay. My God, I got a pretty commanding lead here. You see now there's 350 players, and Doooovid is clearly in first place. Thank God. Praise Hashem. This person gives me a bishop. 2,000. This player is actually higher rated than me. And, just was trying to play very quick. And, gave me a piece for nothing. Thank God. So I'm happy about that. Okay. Trade some pieces down. I'm up a piece. Trading is good. Just found in the center. I think I just moved bishop there. Take him just up a full piece for nothing. Even though he's up 10 full seconds, but he's going to force another trade on there. Okay. Oh shoot! That was not what I wanted to do. Queen there. Okay, but at least I'm on this rook. Oh man, that was not what I wanted to do. I am in serious trouble here. Got maybe at best a draw. I think I'm just going to take the draw. He could go back with the rook. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I got 1 point for the draw. That person was higher rated. So I have a commanding lead. So, I lost my streak bonus. So, thank God I'm pretty far out in first. But be careful. I need a victory. There's only 4 minutes left. Okay, pawn their check, and I'm going to give the check if they want it. I have to run my king. It's fine. Okay, bishop off. Okay, my knight here. Take the rook. Okay, it's fine. If you want to trade queens, I'm up on time. Okay, that's fine. Defend the rook. Trade another one off. Okay, attack the rook. I'm on the pawn. He gives me the rook. Okay, botches it up. That's actually mate threat. Okay. We got no time. And mate. Okay, keeps me pretty clearly in first. Have a nice clear first place here. Certainly if I win this game, I should have no problem coasting to first. Not that, I play mainly to keep my mind fresh, but, here you got over 300 players, so it's kind of gratifying, saying Doooovid has a sharp, logical mind, as I could win this chess tournament with hundreds of competing against hundreds of different players. Okay, lets me do it. I'm going to take care of, I'll let him do the queen for 2 rooks if he wants. So there's less than a minute left. I'm getting the beep. So, I don't know why he did that. So this guy, is coming back into second. So we're going to be very careful. I need to win. That could be bad. I'm giving my queen. I need a time victory. Whoa. This is not looking. Oh, I could have taken his queen for nothing. That's horrible. Well, I didn't even get the time victory there. The tournament ended before, but you see, that was pretty close. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so Doooovid, 12 wins, 2 losses, enough to get me first place, 375 players. So I'm getting all sorts of chats. Take this first. Look at these comments. My Ask the Rabbi has so many videos. So yeah, thank God I just got first place in the tournament. Demonstrate my ability for quick logical thought. Keep my mind short. People see me doing these blood sports and internet debates. You gotta have a very quick mind, logically reasoning. So anyone wants to know why Doooovid performs so well, thank God, in the blood sports. You can see 375 players, 1 minute bullet chess, gold star for Doooovid. So I guess anyone have anything to say? Otherwise, not too many viewers. I think I'm going to call it a good day and thank Hashem for, keeping my mind fresh and, good performance here. And thanks for joining and, keep on streaming. So thank God I'm very happy with that performance. And, I got a lot of stuff I'm trying to research and do. Obviously I'm constantly studying Judaism. Like just the comment on my Ask the Rabbi, I got like over 100 comments. Thank God, no more news. That's got well over 70. They got 20,000 views, 700 comments. A lot of them are just kind of trolls and negative, but trying to read through, trying to take seriously. That guy Christopher Van Jerken. So if you're looking, he wrote this over 2,800 page book on the manufacture and sale of Saint Einstein, the propaganda of supremacy. And this is just so much research. So I started reading it. I'm on page 60, and he had another book, God forbid, the Jewish role in the Armenian genocide. And there's a lot of information there, like different parts of history. And hopefully I'm going to have another conversation with Christopher. But that's why I got to keep my mind fresh and sharp and all this stuff, and like consciousness. Of my weekend review with Jennifer, Church of Entropy Sunday. We're supposed to have that debate next week about, I'm going to try to present the classical logical arguments in favor of God, and she's going to take the negative. And so there's a lot going on. And like it's mental overload. Like I'm pretty good at speed reading. Yeah, I'm reading like 1,000 pages a day. I got Gandalf, who's also a big reader, and I want to reach out to more people and talk about intellectual topics. But in order to do that, I need to keep my mind extremely sharp and on point. And chess is a good way to do it. Plus, as I said, like I'm a volunteer coach, and that's what I do. I'm very happy with the progress of the Detroit City Chess Club, which isn't meeting this week. Usually, Detroit Institute of Arts, and we have kids come in, and I train them at chess. So I'm not competitive. So you could see like 2,000 is a reasonable ranking. I had been up higher, like even in my regular rating over 2,200. So it makes me from a top chess player, but like if I competitively tried to compete, there would be players substantially better than me. So in that sense, I'm not super competitive. Let me even save this. I'll even post this on my social media. Not to try to be braggadocious about my chess ability, but I think it does have somewhat of a show to give me credibility. I have a bachelor's degree. I had a year of a master's program. I was in good rabbinic school, but I think my chess play gives me some amount of credibility. And I'm going to keep on doing the Judaism, and God forbid I got people that ask me like these questions about wanting me to defend like the most egregious parts of Judaism, and that's not really what I'm here for. Like I'm saying, okay, I love the Jewish people, I love Judaism, I love the Jewish text, but I mean, people just want to keep on coming with me and like attacking the most negative things about Judaism. That's not really, if I have to do it, I do it. Like I mentioned, okay, Doooovid is constantly on the battlefield, and it's unfortunate that I'm constantly on the battlefield. However, that's not why I created my channel. But I mean, if I'm required to go on the battlefield and defend Judaism, or whatever, I'll do it. But that's not my real desire. I'm more intellectual. I want to talk in further topics. I'm supposed to talk with Charles Moskowitz Monday morning, and people have their grievances, and okay, like I understand people have their grievances on possibly the Jewish people, the Jewish religion, society in general, social critique. They might see the disproportionate power of Jews in different fields. Here was something interesting I was mentioning. So Alexander Alekhine. So Alexander Alekhine was the world champion of chess in so you can see he competed under the the Nazi flag. He was Russian, born Russian, and he was in France. And when Germany conquered France, he ended up joining the Nazi Party, and he competes under the Nazi flag. I'm not sure if they have a picture of him in Nazi uniform, and that's not important to the connection, but he had written a book on so you see Alexander Alekhine, born in 1892. He dies right after the war. Some people said one of his wife was part Jewish in France, and he becomes world champion from 1927 to 35, and then throughout the war from 1937 to 46, he's considered the reigning world champion. And this stuff with the Bolsheviks, and he actually writes a book on so it's a controversy. I'd shown this article, Alexander Alekhine and the Nazis, and he wrote a book that has not been translated into English that later he claims he didn't write. So let me see if I could make this bigger. And it's interesting to see the role of chess. Obviously, Bobby Fischer, a lot of the greatest chess players were Jews, disproportionately, almost like 40-50% of the world champion chess players were Jews. However, Alexander Alekhine played for the Nazis, and he defeated the Jews easily. He wrote a series of articles, the Deutsche Zeitung in the Nimmerlander, called Jewish and Aryan Chess. The articles tried to show proof that Jews played defensive, cowardly chess, and the Aryan chess players played attacking chess that was aggressive and brave. He had hoped that after the death of Lasker, Lasker would be the last Jewish chess champion of the world. God forbid Lasker's sister died in a gas chamber Nazi concentration camp. Alekhine defined Jewish chess as material profit at all cost. It was opportunism at its best. It was defend at all cost. It was claimed that there had never been a real chess artist of Jewish origin. He mentioned that the representatives of Aryan chess included Philidor, Labrinus, Anderson, Morphy, Shorin, Pillsbury, Marshall, Capablanca, Bugalev, Moore, and the real great Jewish chess players were only Steinitz and Lasker. And later he kind of claims it, but he actually writes this book where he analyzes the chess play of the top Jewish players, and he claims that that Jews play in a certain way. And Alexander Alekhine was actually able to defeat all the Jewish players. So when he played under the Nazi flag, he was very capable of winning. So let me see the. So you see the chess players had played under the Nazi flag and had done quite well. In fact, the World Chess Championship, Team Championship. Let me grab this book. So I'm gonna come back in 1 second. No, I can't seem. I have to look more to find this book. So I apologize. I had actually paid like $70 for this book, so I'm gonna look at find this book. Let me do a quick search of so let me see the role. Let me look this up. So this is actually very interesting history. So it's interesting also that so you have the World Team Chess Championship where you have let me see, going back to years. No, see also Chess Olympiad. Okay, so here is let me see if people could see this. Okay, so in 1936, the World Chess Team Championship is played in Germany, and it's won by Hungary. Third place is in Nazi Germany. 1939 in Buenos Aires is the 8th Chess Olympiad, and Nazi Germany wins the World Chess Championship. And so let's look at this. And this is called unofficial because during the war. So the third unofficial chess Olympiad. And it's interesting also, you had British occupied Palestine. There's a team of British occupied Palestine playing in this. So, the team Hungary, who wins the championship that year, has a lot of Jewish players. I think Neidorf is a Jew. He's playing for Poland. Poland, got second. I think Friedman may have been Jewish. Neidorf, Steiner. So in 36, you have Hungary and Poland that have Jewish players defeat the Nazis. And I mean, they're playing for Hungary or Poland, but defeat the Nazis in chess. And then in 1939, in the eighth Olympiad, which was a controversial tournament, Tarkatauer, I believe, was Jewish, and Neidorf and Friedman, so Nazi Germany actually won first place in the chess championship. And actually, all those people, I have a book. It cost. Let me see if I find it where it actually goes over the games and the history. It's very interesting. And usually, I'm kind of cheap. I don't like paying so much money for books, but I was interested in. Yeah, here it is. I own this book, Pawns in a Greater Game. So, the 1939 Chess Olympiad, which was won by the Nazis. And, so you see that, how the Nazis come to power, that, they were the world chess champions, as Alexander Alekhine, who had been world champion. He was Russian by birth, but he played under the Nazi flag, and he defeated the top Jew. So it's an interesting connection to chess. Obviously Bobby Fischer, and today, the computers are much better. So even if Magnus Carlsen is winning, I was actually watching that. I have it on here in the background. I follow the the latest chess championship. Like I have Nakamura, like I've met Nakamura, like I studied under his stepfather, Sunil Wardamantri, as a kid. He came to Detroit, I met with him. So, Magnus Carlsen is doing pretty well in this tournament, following that. Wesley So, it's pretty international, the tournaments these days, and the various players. But, now the computers are so much better. So, we're looking at this game, and the computer could tell you better moves than even the world champ could play. So the nature of chess these days, really, we're up against the machine more than up against each other. So it's interesting to think about. I don't know. I mean, this Cassandra's asked me to like disavow this different thing and saying like, no, I'm not a follower of the Sabbatian Frankish Satan worshiping thing. Like, I'm not sure, why people are so caught up or they, feel that they want, I mean, maybe they want to understand more about its interesting messianism or false messiahs and the effect that false messiahs could have on the world. But like, I'm not sure why everyone's so caught up with this stuff to, want to know about it. But, like I have to do more, but so Kasparov Mustafli. So Kasparov is a half Jew from his father. So according to Jewish law, Kasparov's not Jewish by blood, and I think his name was changed, and he comes from the Carpathian Mountains, and he mentions like his parents at the time was a multicultural Soviet Union, where he'd married. I think he's from Baku or something like that. That right now might be in Azerbaijan. And his family had intermarried with the different ethnic minorities that existed in the previous multicultural Soviet Union. And now with the breakup of the Soviet Union, you have your more ethnic Soviets. But obviously the Jews were one of the ethnic tribes, and Putin mentions that constantly. Karpov, people have claimed he has Jewish blood. Most people think Karpov doesn't have any Jewish blood. So, Kasparov was dominant in chess. He was a half Jew from his father. Since then, if you look at the top chess players right now, so Jews still perform quite well in chess, but actually none of the top players now currently are Jewish. And I don't even think half Jewish. So Karana, is half Italian, half American. He got his start playing in a synagogue. He's not Jewish. Although, he's probably Jewish friendly because as a kid he had played in a synagogue. Wesley So was coached under Susan Polgar. So like I assume he's at least somewhat Jewish friendly, being, that he played under Susan Polgar for many years. But as far as I know, Dubov, I don't know, Shanklin may be Jewish, I'm not sure. Maybe Dubov. But as far as I know, none of the top 25 players in the world right now are Jewish. So, it doesn't look like you're going to have a Jewish world champion coming up on the scene anytime quickly. Bobby Fischer is an interesting person. Like I've read his, biographies and different thoughts on him. And, he actually joins this form of British Israelism. So a lot of the, people on the alt-right, the Christian identity, which comes from Christian identity. So, if I just look at that real quick, Bobby Fischer and Church of God. So Bobby Fischer joins the Church of God, and so let's see, the Church of God. Let me actually go back. Okay, Bobby Fischer, but the Church of God that he joins, he actually gives like most of his money to it. So, so he joins this Church of God, and I forget the name of the preacher, but they're offbreak of British Israelism. So, similar to Henry Ford in the Dearborn Independent, the writer of it, Diebold, was a British Israelist, Christian identity, popular movement in the alt-right today is a breakoff. So Bobby Fischer was a member of this, similar church, and actually I think he gave almost all of his money when he, had made a significant amount of money that he actually donated it to that church. So it's interesting. We might talk about this some more. I didn't see the movie Pawn Sacrifice. I've read a lot of books on the topic. Yeah, I enjoyed talking with Adam Green. I might do it again. Like, I get a lot of kind of like dumb questions. People want to ask me about the most egregious parts of Judaism. It's just kind of trying to me. And it's like, even like, so if you're like, okay, God forbid, there are bad actors within the religion, or there are egregious statements in our text, and like just to get pounded with it again and again and again, it's like, no, I'm not going to renounce my Judaism just because there's egregious statements in our text or bad actors among us. But so it's really tying and tedious to go over this stuff again and again and again of this different stuff. But I'll do it because like if I'm called to the battlefield, that's my dharma, that's my duty to accept my position on the battlefield if it's necessary. But that's not my desire to do, like to study it. And it's interesting. I think I am going to have a conversation in a week or two with Christopher, and we're going to talk about interesting things, and probably mostly World War II, maybe some stuff about Einstein and the Bolsheviks. And I don't have so much expertise on that. So, Christopher actually knows more about it than me. But just to be hit with like, what does that mean to Doooovid the Jew? If, it's possible that, there are bad actors, or people want to debate like politics or something. That's not what Doovid's about. Like, it may be interesting to you. It may be tangential because Doovid favors multiculturalism and is generally favorable towards immigration. So people want to keep on hitting me with like statistics and these different things. And I've debated it a few times, but I'm not really interested in that. Like, if people want to troll me or people want to spam me, I guess that's might be the price that I have to put up with. But that's not what Doovid's here for. If people sincerely want to understand the greater theology of Judaism, that does interest me. Like, I'll probably do another Ask the Rabbi. I've already done the research. So, for example, let me just re-enter screen share here. You could see on my board here all of these articles on conversion to Judaism. So I got like 30 of them, 40 of them, different articles on conversion to Judaism. And so I am going to eventually do that, but and it'll be an Ask the Rabbi, and I'll take questions. But like, to do an Ask the Rabbi and have like people ask me to defend the most egregious part of Judaism, I can't do that again and again and again. Like, okay, if I'm called to the battlefield, I'll do it. I don't know. I don't really have so much Jew cred. Like, I have Jew cred in a certain respect. Like, I went to good schools. I'm knowledgeable. about the texts. Like I'm generally there for the community. Like you could see like the Hanukkah menorahs or different events. Like I'll come through, but no, I've never seemed to get any benefit from the Jewish community for dealing with this. From a esoteric, like Kabbalistic point, me as a half Jew has a special like relationship, maybe understanding to deal and talk with people. But no, unfortunately, like I'm not going to win friends in the Jewish community because like I had my video with Jonathan Greenblatt, where the majority trend in the Jewish community is like block them, report them, ignore them. So I'm going against the grain of the recommendations of the general Jewish community by engaging with people who take a very harsh opinion towards Judaism. So unlikely, there might be a few outliers who disagree, that could form somewhat of a union with Doooovid of the, like Halsey, for example. Even though me and Halsey don't agree on too much, but we have a more proactive view of dealing with people. Shlomo Gordon are different people. So the rare, like Babs, the Alliance of the Jews that don't take the opinion of the larger Jewish organizations that say block them, ban them, report them. But no, unfortunately, it's actually decreased my credibility in the Jewish community. I've definitely lost friends in the Jewish community from engaging with people that are very questionable and harsh on the Jewish religion, not gained friends. So that's unfortunate. I'm trying to get in the mind of, people like, okay, if you have very harsh opinions, so you're here in Doooovid's chat and like you're pounding me with all these different things. And I don't really know what your intention is. If, just saying, okay, Doooovid's the only Jew who's willing to speak with you. So you want to like pound me with questions about like circumcision and, like odd statements in the Talmud or stuff like that. Like, I mean, I'll do that on an occasion. And, okay, if it's a big channel where I could speak to like Adam Green and speak to more than 1,000 people at a time, or make a video so that people could watch it at their own leisure. But, just like every single person who has like questions on the Jewish people and God forbid if, Doooovid's friends, a few people are willing to speak to you, like then I'm not going to have time for anything else. And, like, I want to advance on my research on consciousness. I'm supposed to be a civil engineer. Like, I should be putting up buildings. Like, I'm a trained engineer. And, like the last year, nothing in my engineering. Like, I do a little bit of property management to pay the bills. But unfortunately, nothing have I been able to advance on my career-wise. And, like even, I'm trying to read this literature from Christopher, thousands of pages about, what would be classified as maybe conspiracy in World War II. And maybe I'll make it, conversation. I'll get a few hundred hits on YouTube and be interesting. But, this is labor of love, interest in Doooovid. And, I take a more neutral, like I was talking like with, No More News with Adam about kind of the nature of the soul and the different various opinions of the Kabbalists between the different opinions of the Jewish soul and non-Jewish soul. And Maimonides appears to believe that there is no difference between a Jewish and non-Jewish soul. And these different concepts are interesting from a theological, Kabbalistic, but it appears that a lot of the people, more like heckling me and what's the advantage, like pounding Doooovid about circumcision again and again, say, okay, you don't want circumcision in your society or whatever, God forbid, that's our Jewish custom. Like, that's what we do. You might have a few Jews that will forego circumcision or try to assimilate. But I don't want to debate that again and again and again, like God forbid, or these different, people want to call me out for obscure statements in the sages, or even say they're not obscure. You think like, this is your theology. And so they're attacking the Jewish religion. And like, it's like, God forbid, Doooovid's the only one who's going to stand up and try to defend the Jewish religion. If that's my dharma, that's my duty, I'll probably do it. But there's other stuff I'd like to, spend my time doing, and saying like, Doovovid has dedicated my adult life to studying consciousness, physics, civil engineering, all these different topics. And it's like, I don't want to talk about these, issues again and again and again. And, for God forbid, I'm going to be called to the battlefield to do it. I'll do it. And I can't answer for the Jewish community. Like, I'm an outlier in the Jewish community. I probably get more pushback from, God forbid, my fellow Jews than from, the so-called anti-Semites. And that's unfortunate. I can't explain it, saying I love Judaism. I love the Jewish people. Obviously, I did my Ask the Rabbi 6 on intermarriage. I'm a product of, what according to classical Jewish law is a forbidden marriage. So like Bobby Fischer, Gary Kasparov, a lot of the top chess players are saying, okay, like, maybe Doooovids and moms are, God forbid, how do I deal with that? How do I deal with my fellow Jews, being, product of a forbidden marriage? And I did a 7-hour stream, Ask the Rabbi number 6. I'm constantly reading about it. I'm going to do an Ask the Rabbi number 8 soon on conversion to Judaism. But as a half Jew, like I'll never be a spokesperson for the Jewish community. Maybe, within the Jewish community, I've garnered respect for what I've done for the community or my scholarship. But even that, like, generally they're going to advance people because Judaism is largely a lineage-based religion. Rosicrucian is interesting. I have books on it. If it's a Masonic society, the Rosicrucians are still popular. They meet in my area. There are some overlaps between Judaism and Rosicrucianary. I haven't had so much time to research that. There's countless things I would like to study. Time is short. Like I sang that song, Lo Yikye Giva, Shini Nalfin. Lo Yayil give or take, Bukishbenaya. Lo Yayil give or take, Bukishbenaya. Even if I were to live for thousands of years, I can only scratch the surface. So, these topics that have been interesting to me, like the Templars and Rosicrucianism, or even like the Muslims, the Assassins. I have different books comparing these movements. And, generally I subscribe to Freemasonry. And I'd say Freemasonry is a science that could incorporate all these different things. And Rosicrucianism, from my understanding, has an initiation system similar to Freemasonry, but I just don't have time to research it. If it came up and like there was a proper venue where I knew Rosicrucians, but people who are like questioning me on the JQ or Rosicrucianism, like I like time is too limited. So unless it was a more friendly case where like I had friendly Rosicrucians and I when I was in university and dealing with more, because Doooovid's alternative, I'm alternative on the news, like no more news, is alternative media. So I get put together with these alternative movements like Rosicrucianism. So when I was in the University of Michigan, I might have actually dealt with Rosicrucians, but now I don't really have any dealings. But I did buy a few books on them. If there are Rosicrucians out there, I wouldn't mind learning more about it. I would talk, I don't know, debate Brother Nathaniel. I would speak to him. I mean, debate, in terms of like a method of getting towards truth, I value the purpose of discourse and debate in terms of getting towards truth. I'll put the link in the chat. Like, hopefully I don't get a troll, but if anyone really, I know Mustapheles doesn't come on these. If anyone really wants to come on, like, hopefully you're not going to troll me, but if you really have something you want to say or ask me, but like please don't ask me about like circumcision or like random like things in the sages that are obscure. Like it's largely a waste of my time and yours. Otherwise I'm going to end the stream. Sabbath is starting tonight, and I'll continue. I'll be streaming more Church of Entropy Sunday. Next week we're going to have a debate on God, to kind of try to teach people the proper menu for debating and a venue to debate and getting towards truth and exchange of information, talk with Charles Moskowitz. So I would be happy to talk with Brother Nathaniel, but I'm too busy. I'm not going to actually reach out to him and request. I was thinking about reaching out and trying to speak to E. Michael Jones again, because he's got a lot of research that is interesting. And so I actually would like to speak to E. Michael Jones. I might actually reach out to him, but like I'm not interested in like reaching out to like every single alternative Jew out there that has opinions about Judaism that aren't in the mainstream. And actually, thank God I'm seeing them. I'm actually more popular than most of the mainstream Jewish channels, because I constantly follow Judaism. I'm interested in Judaism, and I listen to the mainstream channels. And thank God I'm more popular than a lot of them. So maybe it'll be a venue where people in the mainstream Judaism will talk with me, and we could advance scholarship and debate ideas. And I'm more an idea person, structures and science than ad homs and blood sports. But I'll do it if duty calls, and if any of my regular viewers or followers, so to say, YouTube followers,
want to reach out and try to set up a conversation, like I might be involved, but I don't really have the time to deal with every single person that has questions on the Jewish religion or the Jewish people. So I guess if no one's going to take the link, I'm going to sign off, and see people Sunday night on Church of Entropy for the Week in Review. People in the streaming circle, I think the Week in Review is a valuable venue. Cassandra, if you want to set it up, I don't know, Brother Nathaniel. If he's Christian Orthodox, like Eastern Orthodox, I was supposed to debate Jay Dyer, and then he had his demonetization or his channel taken down. So Jay Dyer had actually said on his channel officially he was going to talk with Doooovid, and then he had issues with his channel. It never came up. Brundlefly was the one who was pushing for that. So that's kind of slipped through the cracks. Brother Nathaniel, probably like Jay Dyer would be a better conversation. I interfaith with Eastern Orthodox people in real life. So, just because Brother Nathaniel's a Jewish convert to Orthodox Christianity, maybe Jay Dyer would be more interesting or something of that. But I'm not going to try to push myself forward like that. It's not my nature to try to self-advance myself. So it'd have to be other people that want to see it happen and, would try to do the organizing or hype for it. And, saying, is it just, how Doooovid would interact with an Orthodox Christian, or is it specifically Brother Nathaniel because he's in Israel and has Jewish blood and doesn't make a difference? I would rather, so to say, talk with Jay Dyer or something, but I would talk with Brother Nathaniel also. But as I said, someone else will have to put that forward because I'm not going to make an effort to reach out to those people. So if you really want to see that happen, you have to, do that yourself. So, someone's saying he's not credible, and Jay Dyer is more scholarly, probably be a better conversation. John, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, who's this?
I just saw the link. I wanted to join. Say hi.
Okay. Well, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm John. I'm a Catholic. You could identify me as a fascist. I wouldn't say National Socialist. I'm broadly critical of Judaism, although I have actually a deep respect for it, especially the Old Testament. Not necessarily post-Christ, but definitely I do agree that the Jewish IQ is higher than the Gentile, but I do not think that they're necessarily immoral people, and I want to ask you a couple questions about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Why do you think Hitler hated the Jews?
I'm not an expert in that. I'm saying there's hundreds and hundreds of books on the subject. You really want my opinion on that?
Yeah, of course. I just want to see how you conceive.
You're asking me because you haven't read the tens of books or literature, the countless information out there, or you're asking me because you have read that and you want to know what my take on that is.
I want to know as a Jewish person.
But I'm asking you because I'm saying there's thousands of books of what Jewish people's opinion on this issue is. I'm saying it's because you've never read any of it, and you're asking me because you have no information on the subject, or you're asking me because you know quite a bit about the subject and want my take on the scholarship.
I'm asking you because I respect you.
But I'm saying, what do you know? What do you know about the subject? I'm saying, obviously.
I've read a couple books. There's one book called Adolf Hitler. I read that. Broadly, I've seen documentaries. Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I've versed myself enough on the issue.
Doovidism. Did you just come onto my channel after the Adam Green show, or have you been following me for a while?
I followed you when you went on JF's show and debated evolution, and I thought you did a pretty good job.
Okay. So I quoted my Newton. The definition of intelligence is to hold multiple conflicting ideas in your head at the same time, and I have this kind of multiple truth hypothesis where, like a pill pull type thing where maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this. So question like God forbid, why did Hitler hate the Jews? Is some relatively an unanswerable question. You could go from one perspective that he didn't hate the Jews, and he just wanted a pure German area, and maybe he didn't mind the Jews going to Israel, and he just didn't want them in the area, or he didn't want them negatively influenced his people, or he had these like deep, kind of like Christian identity type beliefs where there's the eternal struggle between the Aryan and the Jewish people, and was kind of like a divinely ordained struggle where wasn't so much like a Kevin McDonald group evolutionary strategy that's conflicting with Aryans, but was actually kind of this like divinely ordained eternal battle, maybe like Mark Brahman. Do you follow Mark Brahman?
I do not know who that is.
I mean, he's popular with Richard Spencer, and he's got this Jewish esoteric moralism. He mainly interprets like comic books and movies, but he's got more of this like eternal battle between the Aryan and the Jew, where maybe even like E. Michael Jones, where it's a spiritual force, where you like a Marcinian. I mean, I guess you're Catholic. Are you familiar with Marcinian?
No, I'm actually not a big reader. I'm sorry. I'm very working class.
Yeah, but so there was these. I'm more spiritual. In the force, like Marcinian was declared a heresy, and he had said, I've done streams on this on my public study sessions, where he claimed that the God of the Jewish people, Jehovah, was different than the God of Jesus Christ, and God forbid, the God of Moses is God forbid say evil, and the God of Jesus Christ is the God of love. And the First Nicene Council, that was declared heretical, and so I'm not sure what kind of angle you're looking at. Are you more like atheists? Are you looking at like E. Michael Jones, where there's this spiritual force behind the Jewish people, or even like New Testament style, where the Jews rejected Logos, or Jews rejected Christ, and there's like God forbid, like this eternal curse? Or are you looking at more like an evolutionary type Kevin McDonald approach?
Yeah, definitely. I fall in the evolutionary category, but I'm not opposed to the spiritual look at it. Although I don't think that Jews and Aryans are in a eternal conflict.
Yeah, I mean, so that's probably like a Greg Johnson, more popular alt-right type approach of John Francis Garepi, Kevin McDonald, Richard Spencer, Greg Johnson, probably Jared Taylor, who just look at it probably as a struggle for resources, as Jews as a minority in foreign lands, and Jews have developed a certain strategy that benefits us, and could possibly cause conflict in a host society. So you could say, was it that, God forbid, the Nazis actually hated the Jews, or they just saw that, God forbid, there were negative things happening in their society that they attributed to the Jewish people, and thought if they could extract the Jewish people from their society, that would eliminate the problem. And in terms like Kevin McDonald, Jared Taylor, to say like, I don't have any problems with the Jewish people. It's just that they're pushing things that I feel are bad for my people and bad for society, and saying like, okay, if I were a Jew, say you're not a Jew, but you would think about, well, if you were a Jew, maybe you would also be pushing for open borders and multiculturalism and the various different things that statistics and percentage which show that Jews tend to be on the side of multiculturalism and immigration and these different things, and you don't necessarily have any problems with the Jewish people, but you see that they're negatively affecting society in the way that you see it. So if you want to take, I mean, God forbid, we got to like I got to spend my time constantly talking about Hitler or something like that, but you're just taking this general approach, like where so like Kevin McDonald is like, well, I don't mind the Jewish people. I just have recognized that these negative influences to society, in his opinion, are largely coming from this Jewish group strategy. And so I don't know if that's an approach you're taking, or you think, God forbid, there's something intrinsically wrong with the Jewish people, or you kind of say, well, like if you were a Jew, you would probably be acting in the same way, in just like a self-interest rational actor theory, that everyone acts in their own self-interest, and sometimes there's conflicting self-interest, and different group strategies will come in conflict with each other. And like a Jared Taylor approach, like I'm not against any other people, I'm just for my people.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. I'll give you my conception of it. I think it's interesting that the Jews for thousands of years have lived, the Jewish blood has lived apart from Jewish soil. That, who they are. And I think it's very interesting how for, upwards of 2,000 years, this group was able to survive, never melding with what has been termed the host population. And I think in order to do that, you need a very strong in-group preference.
Well, just
And
a quick pushback on that, because obviously the Jewish people has incredibly melded with the host population. That's why Jews have been invited. I'm saying maybe over a long period of time, if you just look at Jews as money lenders or Jews as educational, that saying like you're trying to say like there's always been conflict, like Jews in non-Jewish societies has always been conflictual, and you're rejecting the beneficial things that Jews have brought to society. You're rejecting that Jews have largely been invited and wanted in societies due to possibly what you might just call our high IQ, and like Jews make up 10% of dentists and doctors in America, and so say that you might like I want Jews in our society, they're good dentists and doctors, but then what do they do with the power they accumulate? Something just to push back. Are you rejecting the mass benefits that Jews have brought to Western society?
Well, I'll be honest, I never actually considered the Jewish benefit to society. That rarely comes up in debates, and it's interesting that you bring it up. No, yeah, definitely Jews.
You say, okay, the 10% of the Jews who make up dentists, and let's say like Luke Ford says, generally Jews are considered pretty competent. So we talk like Jewish doctors and dentists and lawyers, God forbid we might use our role in society to benefit ourselves, to support things like Israel or to support wars overseas and things that don't benefit the host society. But it's only because we bring a vast benefit to society that we're able to exert that influence. So it's not like, we came as unwanted immigrants and, somehow subvertedly rose to power. We came and helped develop the markets and the stock exchanges and business and commerce and medicine and science. And then we built up on that power and used that power to change the larger society in a way that the host, so to say, host population became unhappy with us. But you're gonna say, God forbid, we were infiltrators and negative from day one.
No, I will not say you're negative, but I'll say that you're like any other people who has a healthy in-group preference. In that, when I make profit, when I succeed, I do so in orientation to my people. I hire Jews. I work with Jews. I am a Jewish person, and I serve the Jewish people in that. That's a natural thing. That's something that every single people has. And I do not know if that is compatible with two cultures at the same time. It's largely why I'm opposed to immigration into Europe and America.
Yeah, but I've had these debates so many times. I mean, you guys say like there's many different forces at work, and so obviously, like you as a Catholic, Northern Europeans felt that way about you. Saying, okay, so maybe you've abandoned your Catholicism. I don't know what your bloodline, if you're an Anglo or something like that, or because a lot of, these differentiations, and say like, I always mention like 20% of Jews have blue eyes and 5% of Jews have blonde hair. So like if you're an Italian or Eastern European Jew, generally, so to say, Jews are whiter than a lot of European peoples, and you want like JF strict biology, and you're saying like, well, Jews have more of Mediterranean, Arab DNA, but it's when you have a pan-European movement in many scales, like Jews, especially Ashkenazic Jews, are significantly whiter than a lot of other people, and so these things are relatively complicated when you use words like your society. And, so okay, my grandfather was a war hero, volunteered for the U.S. war. He came over, invited to the U.S., provided a good benefit for society, built up wealth. And, okay, maybe we use that to benefit our own people. But, for you to say it's your society because you feel you're European, and, even in Germany, like my family was in Germany for over 1,000 years, the progenitor of my ancestors, like Deutsche Bank, it was probably one of my distant cousins, the founder of Deutsche Bank. You're saying like, okay, now Germany exists and you have Deutsche Bank, but had my ancestors not been invited into Germany, would Germany have ever had, their national bank?
Maybe not, perhaps not. And well, I'm not necessarily a materialist on these issues. I think that it's important to have spiritual and mental well-being rather than having your GDP increase by 10%. But yeah, I'm not necessarily. I had worked at a
I don't know
amusement
if you
park.
want to give any information about yourself, like your racial ethnic background, or I mean, you don't have to, but when
I'm
you throw,
Italian and Baltic.
so I mean, relatively, your average Jew is probably lighter featured, more European than you. You know, say if you looked at Italians and you said Jews, 20% of Jews have blue eyes, 5% of Jews have blonde hair. On a phenotypic level, Jews are just as European or even more European than your average Italian or Baltic person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I identify as an Italian because, yeah, it's just I don't know. I was raised Italian. I wasn't really raised
Even
Baltic.
Italian, like the Sicilians, saying that the Italians might have just as much Arab or whatever the proper word for the Mediterranean, North African DNA as Jews do.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't cling to being European. I don't necessarily look at Europeans as a whole. I'm Italian first.
And even in America, you're saying Jews were accepted in America before the Italians. So I'm saying in terms of like the Anglo, the French, the Spanish, who that relatively the acceptance of the Jewish people in America, the Jews were welcomed and accepted into society before the Baltic and Italian peoples on a historic level.
Okay, well, that's very good. But like I said, I don't necessarily identify as European, so I'm not really worried how people classify you. Jews are a distinct genetic cluster. They're a distinct people genetically. So I think that does not, even though socially they may have at one point been accepted as broadly European, I would still say that they're still a distinct people. But I have I would say I don't necessarily morally look down at the Jews. It's something I would do if I was in a foreign land, and that's what my religion told me. I would, seek to acquiesce resources to my people. But what bothers me the most about Jews is I had worked in an amusement park, a couple of years ago, and the Jews would rent out the entire amusement park. These were Orthodox and I think Hasidic Jews, and you could see just how, I mean, this is exactly what I'd want for my community. This is precisely what I'd want. You'd have a closed, loving, compassionate community that sticks together, that, they're all friends, they all identify, they're all one people acting in America. That's a beautiful way to live. But then you look at statistics where Jews vote 85% Democrat, where the Democratic Party explicitly stands against this in-group preference, against this, hatred, not hatred, this unwelcoming of the outsider, which I would say that the Jews have to be by necessity of maintaining their own existence.
Yeah, and generally, I'm willing to agree on that. Saying like obviously there's right-wing Jews, but even the right-wing Jewish organizations are generally pro-immigration and pro-multicultural. You might find Halsey or a handful of very right-wing Jews that are anti-multiculturalism and immigration, but like you said, it's like 80-90%. So there is a logic to saying if immigration is a big issue to you or diversity is a big issue to you, and you're looking who's on the opposite side of that issue, and it very clearly says like, yes, the Jewish people are the ones fighting you at City Hall. The Jewish people are clearly the people that are fighting in Washington and City Hall for more immigration and more diversity.
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
at the same time, so to say, we might try to reserve our distinctness, and we might have the exact opposite stance in Israel. So I mean, even if I acknowledge like all of that is true, it's a given that the vast majority and the statistics basically play that out. That you don't have to have Doooovid agree to what you're saying. You can just look at like any regular polling data, and it's blatant. even if you don't have
Yeah.
experience. So if you have personal experience, like, you know, working with Jews or living near a Jewish community from your personal anecdotal experience, but you know, from a social science perspective, these things are about as factual as social science, you know, could be considered factual.
Well, if you look up feminists by religion, you know, they're on Wikipedia, they have it listed. And, you know, there's like 40 Christians listed on Wikipedia, but there's like 240 something
Yeah, I know
Jewish.
all this stuff, you know, saying, so let's
Yeah.
just say I'm willing to acknowledge all this different stuff and all these different points. I mean, you don't have to, you know, waste my time and waste the stream's time repeating things that, you know, like I know, or almost anyone who watches me regularly knows.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's just it's that these Jewish people are, you know, they're very conservative in their social being, but they vote very left wing. But the only conclusion I can draw from that is that it's conservatism, culture, for me, but not for thee. It's hypocritical, and the hypocrisy is where I
You think it's specifically a hypocrisy unique to the Jewish people, and you just take like a rational actor theory where people act in their own best interest, and then there could become a natural conflict between groups where one group acting in their best interest comes to a point where they're conflicting with the best interest of other groups, and it's very difficult for, you know, one group to say what's in my best interest is going to harm a different group, and that by harming the other group it's eventually going to come back to harm my own self-interest. Or you say that you think there's something unique about the, you know, Jewish evolutionary strategy, or in fact that every group, all people act in that way.
It's possible that there's uniqueness, but I couldn't prove it, so I wouldn't necessarily make that argument. Well, it's also true that Jews have a very high IQ, so this in-group preference behavior is particularly detrimental, and yeah, we should probably point out their hypocrisy and be able to criticize Jews freely without having your life ruined.
Well, I mean, you just take that to a, you know, saying, if you were a Jew, what would you do? And so you're thinking, okay, we're a minority. We're not going to be able to win at the ballot box in a democracy. So if you look at, like, I'm saying, even like Jared Kushner, my impression of how he won the election was kind of playing people against each other and using the rise of kind of white sentiment in order to get Trump into office. And then once Trump is into office, he's going to be like extremely pro-Israel or something, where, you know, Cambridge Analytica and these things were actually probably the extreme right wing or Zionist Jews that backed President Trump had made an exact calculation of saying, like, all these things that we're talking about right now in 2015, people had known all this information and said, this is how we're going to win an election. But if you're, you know, a Jew who's pro-immigration, and you're recognizing that anti-immigrant sentiment is extremely popular in America, and you know, so do we just concede the issue and say, well, America doesn't want more immigrants, you know, or at least a sizable chunk doesn't want more immigration. They don't want more multiculturalism, and because it's a, you know, democratic country, we're going to lose the battle. Or, you know, we look, well, you know, like, well, who controls the social media? Maybe, you know, if the ADL could reach out to, you know, our, so to say, fellow Jews, Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Susan Wojcicki, you know, so on and so on, and you know, use legal but what you might consider underhanded methods, you know, saying that not necessarily, and even, God forbid, if it was illegal methods, God forbid, but you're talking legal methods where it's saying, well, let's just deplatform these people, let's just find the loudest voices among the anti-immigration, anti-multicultural camp and deplatform them and try to ruin their lives in order that they won't be able to build up a super majority to beat us at the ballot box. I mean, still like a rational actor strategy, where if you were a Jew, you would probably be doing the same thing. It's not like an evilness of the Jew. It's just, you know, saying the Jews are just acting in a rational way in our own self-interest. And, you know, God forbid, it could be a disastrous decision, which will eventually lead to disaster for our people, because if we keep on trying to enforce the way we think is best for society upon the larger population, and the larger population saying it's not working out for us, and they see that the, you know, the Jews are keep on trying to do it, and God forbid, you know, the Jews are just acting in a rational way in our own self-interest, and was that the cause of World War II? And even say like, they didn't even necessarily have a problem with the Jewish people. They were just, saying enough. We have to do what's in our own best interest.
Yeah. Well, I would say that Jews would probably be incompatible because as someone who could probably be tied to a European as an Italian, I could hypothetically get along with my fellow, Germans, Anglos, and, say that, we're not so different. However, someone who's from Mexico.
I mean, just to give a logical perspective, like historically, the Italians have had a longer working relationship with the Jews than you have with the Northern Europeans. I mean, if you're saying like, okay, if you're Italian Roman in ancestry going back 3,000 or 4,000 years, you have probably had a positive working allyship relationship with the Jewish people, 2,000 of those years, as where you've only had a working positive relationship with the Northern European peoples for a few hundred of those years.
Yeah. Well, weren't the Jews kicked out of Venice? Is that true? I might have to look that up.
Well, I mean, there were bad spots between it. So I'm saying, obviously, Julius Caesar, Cicero, a lot of the Roman generals were allies and friendly with the Jewish people, and saying that Rome rises to power in the East through an allyship with the Jewish people. Rome defeats Egypt and Persia with the help of the Jews. And, obviously the Romans destroy the temple, and there's, back and forth. But if you gave an average of the period of time between Rome, Italy, and the Jewish people, the majority of that time we've been allies. And obviously there's been some very bad moments, but, the Jewish community has been in Rome since, a few hundred years before before Christ. And, we might have been expelled a few times. And even during the Spanish expulsion, maybe in Venice there was an expulsion, but generally the Romans made exceptions during the Inquisition to allow the Jewish communities to stay. And in fact, there's a continuous Jewish community in Rome till today. So if you look at what's your history with the Jewish people versus what's your history with the British, with the Germanic people, on a larger scale, you're saying you as a Roman has had better history with the Jewish people than you've had with the Germanic or Anglo people.
Yeah, that might be true, and I'll do you the favor. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna have to go soon. Yeah. I'll do you the favor of researching that because I'm not exactly sure if that's true that the net positive of the Italian relationship with Jews has been a gain.
Just compared to the Anglos, saying when the Romans first went into England, you have Hadrian's Wall. So Hadrian, who, God forbid, waged war against Israel, at the same time, he was called back, from England, where Hadrian defeated the Brits and couldn't defeat the Scots and built Hadrian's Wall. And then he was called back to wage war against Israel. And then, the Catholic, saying that Catholics in England, the whole Anglican Church rose due to war between the Italian and the Anglo people. And, till today, World War II, you're an Italian, you were on the opposite side of the Anglo people, World War II, and so on and so on. But I say, if you want to make a collective, how many times have you been allies with the Jews? How many times have you been against the Jews versus something like the Anglo people? How many times have you been allies with the Anglos versus enemies with the Anglos? That from my understanding of history, you've been allies with the Jews more than you've been allies with the Anglos. I mean, it could be your current best interest. Like I said, you're a rational actor theory, so it's not like you're making your decision, should you ally with the Jews or should you ally with the Anglos, based on like a percentage of, the thousands of years of history. You're looking at currently what's in your best interest now. And if you're looking, your best interest now is to ally with the Anglos and not the Jews, but, to take a broader historic approach.
Probably, right now it would definitely be beneficial to ally with the Anglos, but I'm more concerned. Despite the ad homs of the common left, I do not want a second Holocaust, and I think that if we can build a relationship with the Jews that is understanding and beneficial for both parties.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at it from that perspective, saying like Israel stands better than Italy today. So okay, God forbid, like we took massive casualties. World War II did not work out good for the Jews. But if you look at the current status of the Italian people versus the Jewish people on any relative metric, Israel is standing much better than Italy today.
Yeah, and they have 15 IQ points on us, right? But I'm not really worried about the material provisions of the Italian people. I'm worried about their spiritual. If you can be spiritually aligned, you can handle anything. You can be sick, you can be poor, you can be anything. But if you're aligned spiritually, then you can tolerate anything. So I'm not necessarily worried about that.
Why wouldn't you be worried? I mean, saying like, I don't know if you remember the War of the Roses and the whole reason the Anglos broke off with the Catholic Church. Saying you think you're going to be able to realign with the Anglos on a spiritual level, and you're not going to look at the long view of history and all the wars you fought against each other and your inability to align on spiritual issues. I mean, you say, okay, it's the same Jesus Christ versus the Jews who reject Jesus Christ, and therefore you think you're going to spiritually be able to align with the Anglos. But historically, it's not. It wasn't that easy.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm actually saying that, being hungry if you have God is trivial. I'm saying that not having a dentist if you have God is trivial. If my people are healthy in spirit, then I'm not worried that they're lagging behind Israel materially. That was my point in saying that. I personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Anglos, but I would not expect a spiritual alliance between the two. Yeah, but I would say that I would say that it's possible that we could get along, but we have to be able to criticize Jewish power. That's the only way.
I agree with that. So okay, maybe I'm biased because I'm a half Jew, or or maybe just because I'm a half Jew, or whatever, internationally known chess player or whatever, that I have a better feel on group conflict or conflicting group strategies and benefit. That I agree that the Jewish community should look at these type things, and the strategy that the community at large, the organizational power using right now, God forbid, could be heading for disaster. And that's why I have my YouTube and alternative platform to have these conversations. And that's probably why you're talking with me, because the general power structures within the Jewish community would God forbid, reject your question as a totality. And if you insisted on keep on asking these questions, God forbid, might try to censor you or even ruin your life. And as more and more people like you start asking these questions, so the ADL or the Jews as a small people might be able to hold down tens, hundreds of thousands of people asking your questions. But when it comes to millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people asking these questions, the strategy of the Jewish community will backfire on us. And so, World War II, from some perspective, that's what happened World War II.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe it could be, but see, it's a very hard spot to negotiate, because once, racial/ethnic lines become an acceptable criticism, that just becomes an entire conflict. Everything from the last 1,000 years gets brought up. I think that it's very hard to control groups of people, which is...
That's even what... I don't mean to keep interrupting you, but I'm saying, like, I've been researching... I mean, you're just asking basic questions, but, like, I've been researching this for years, but that's, what Derek Black and saying Don Black, David Duke say, that you could be friends with an individual Jew and say that's a good person, but as a totality, people act in their own group interests. So, you might meet a lot of Jews and be like, yeah, he's a great guy. Like, I trust him, I take him to my house and we hang out. But then at the same time, you can say, like, you act in your group's interest on a larger level. Like, like saying when you're voting for Trump and your Jewish friend is voting for Clinton, or when you're questioning immigration and your Jewish friends are defending immigration, that there's some greater predeterminative force that causes this group conflict. And it may even be determinative that there is nothing we could do about it. That, I use the expression Jews are going to Jew. And like, I know from my mother, who's relatively secular, and it's almost a determinative force that she can't be, so to say, convinced. It's just a predeterminative biological or spiritual force that causes her regardless of logic or arguments, to keep on acting in what she feels is the group interest.
That's
Even
interesting.
though on a private business or personal level, you could say like, yeah, I mean, I enjoy my Jewish friends and don't see any problem. Like, I don't think they're going to steal or do anything negative to me. But yes, they do keep on pushing their group interest, which on a larger society level is possibly causing disastrous outcomes.
Would you say that that's a good thing?
Well, I'm saying, God forbid, if you look at it on a determinative scale, it's a bad thing because there's nothing that could be done to stop the forces of the clash of cultures, which might lead to, Armageddon, World War III, in horrible things. Because you're saying like, no, you're not going to be able to have conversations with the larger Jewish power structures and convince them to change course from censorship or deplatforming or multiculturalism. They look at it as like a battle where one side has to win. And that would appear to be the reality of the situation, where it's basically the cultural war right now, and the Jews, generally statistics will show 80-90% of the Jewish community are on the opposite side of the culture war as you, and they're not interested in having this conversation with you that I'm willing to have with you. They're interested in beating you, and so to say, what happens if they're wrong and they lose the culture war? And God forbid, is that essentially what happened in World War II, or historically like that? And then if you take a free will example, is like, can there even be anything done about it? Is there a reason why Doooovid's the only one willing to speak with you, and none of the major Jewish organizations would even be willing to have this conversation?
Yeah. So do you think that, all the Jews that you've previously listed, do you think they love America? Do you think they care for the well-being of America?
Well, they probably do, but I'm saying if they have a natural inclination to act out in their own best interest, and when their own best interest conflicts with the greater interest of the country, doesn't necessarily mean they don't love America. They're saying, I love America if it continues to be in the best interest of my people. And if America doesn't continue to be in the best interest of my people, I'm going to try to mold America in a way that keeps it in the best interest of my people. And God forbid, if it brings down America, so be it. Because if America doesn't continue to be in the best interest of my people, what do I care if America? What do I care about America anymore? And saying, you as a so to say, white man might feel that way too. Where I'm saying like, well, just get used to it. Whites are going to be a minority. You're going to have immigration and multiculturalism, and that's the new America. So if you love America, you would accept diversity in immigration. And you're saying like, no, I'm not interested in America if that's going to be the direction of America. So I mean, from that perspective, there's no difference between you and the Jewish people. You're both willing to forsake America for your group interest.
That's true. That is true. But I would say that immigration from the third world is not in the Jewish interest at all. I would say that it's not in the Jewish interest if Jews care about America. It perhaps might still be profitable.
Well, maybe from the third world. I mean, God forbid you use that term, God forbid, but saying, okay, immigration from the third world versus immigration, being pro-immigration in general. So he's saying, is the Jewish community completely in favor of what you would call immigration from the third world, or are we just favoring immigration in general in the shifting dynamics away from Europe? And so you could argue that it's not necessarily the same thing, being pro-immigration, not minding the decrease, the demographic replacement, so to say, or America becoming minority white, isn't necessarily the same thing as immigration from the third world.
Well, to me, that's the crux of the problem. I do not see a problem with immigrants from Europe. I'd be all pro-immigration if it's just Europeans.
But Europeans don't really want to come here. There's no demand of large amounts of Europeans to come here anyways.
That's true. That's true. But I think immigrants from the third world, if I'm allowed to use that term, or if you have a better term, I'll use it.
I'm scared of YouTube censorship even coming down on me, and I don't think calling third world. Hopefully that's not the point yet where we're gonna my channel's gonna get taken down because you say immigration from the third world. But yeah, I think the direction of censorship would be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't even use the term immigration from the third world. Maybe immigration from less developed countries or whatever would probably be the more politically correct way of saying it.
Okay, well, immigration from these less developed countries, where crime is through the
And just to
roof,
put it on you, like, doesn't that include the Baltics?
is the Baltics third world? I did not know that.
Well, it's not third world, maybe it's second world, but I'm saying the Baltics is less developed. It's not they're not, what we would consider first world country. They'd be second world country.
That's true. That is true. But I would say that they have within them. I think that's actually this will make me sound like a social constructionist, but I think it is due to material deprivation because their IQs are fairly attuned to the European standard, and they're also low crime. There's not a lot of crime there. Where in the developing world, they are lacking both of those aspects, and I think that immigration from these places will just recreate the disastrous situations in places like Ecuador and Guatemala and all these places.
We focus on the Hispanics, but I'm just because I've been debating this for over a year now. But let's talk like the Philippines or China or Korea, where we could probably bring in tens of millions of immigrants that are higher, from a statistical point, higher IQ and less crime prone than the Baltics from other places of the world, like Korea, Philippines, China, that statistically, and even here in Michigan, in fact, factually, we don't have such a problem of Hispanic immigration here because we're very far north in cold climate. In fact, we have a larger immigration problem from Eastern Europe that comes over through Canada.
Yeah,
but I mean, from a statistic like merit-based immigration, that we might like from the President Trump point of view of merit-based immigration, you might have people from the Philippines and Korea and China, and there's a lot of them. Saying there's hundreds of millions of those people that would possibly score higher on a point system of merit-based than Eastern Europeans.
Yeah.
Jared Taylor is always famous for saying that. He's saying like he's interested in his people, so to say, not like some sort of hierarchy of saying we want the best. Saying well, I don't care if it's the best or not. So you have the problems when you use arguments like IQ and crime statistics versus just saying you want the best for your people regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, and I, as a Christian, I don't want to sound too discriminatory based on race, but I also think that
whites are the minority of Christians also. So even from that perspective, saying like, well, actually, whites make a minority of the percentage of Christians worldwide, and like countries like South Korea are hugely Christian, or in the Philippines, there's tens, maybe hundreds of millions of Christians.
Is that true? I did not know that was true.
I've done demographic research, but certainly whites are a minority of Christians worldwide.
Okay, yeah,
Hispanics are vast majority Christian. I mean, even Catholic.
Yeah, if these countries had low crime disposition, like let's say Korea, and they had my biggest argument against Asia, which hypothetically could be solved, would be the issue of very low moral character, and I think that's very present in China. You don't see a lot of crimes such as assault and battery, but you do see a lot of what we would call in the Western world white collar crimes, a lot of scams. They do a lot of things that are very morally questionable, like only aborting females and eating dogs. It's just, and that sounds like a stereotype, but there's the Yulin Dog Festival, and it's something out of a nightmare. Yeah, so I would say that if we could get Christians from Asia with upstanding moral character, then I would be open to immigration to them as long as it was not forced integration and they were allowed to exist within American cities, in their own neighborhoods, in their own places. Yeah. But yeah, this worldview only works as long as certain people are allowed to be criticized, and that's very dangerous. That's extremely dangerous because this could just develop into race war. But I think that it's important that the Jewish and maybe even the Chinese or the Korean, if they came here, in-group power structures, if they were questioned, I think that we could alleviate a lot of these issues. But there's become almost a Jewish monopoly on things where if I question the Jewish agenda, I get banned from Facebook, and I get banned from YouTube, and I get banned and I get pilloried in the media.
That's
And
a pan-minority effect. You mean saying because you have a lot of Indians and Chinese and Asians that are part of a coalition of so to say high IQ minorities that are doing it. It's not just the Jews per se that are doing it. The Jews are only capable of implementing this with the ADL because the Asians and Chinese that we have a majority, let's say the internet tech companies of non-whites, of if you put together Indians and Chinese and Jews, and so it's not you're talking about group competitive interest, and it's not just, God forbid, like the Jews with a different interest than the Europeans, the Chinese and the Indians that also make up huge parts of these tech companies also have a conflicting interest with you. So when the ban hammer is coming down on you, it's not necessarily just the Jew who did it to you, it's the Jew who teamed up together with the the Indians and the Chinese.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm not a rabid about it where I think that the Jews are responsible for all my woes. But I would definitely say that there is Jewish power that has to be questioned.
I've had these debates, constantly. You're saying that people think like Jews don't cause immigration pressure. Like, God forbid, like, saying if even if there wasn't Jews weren't part of the larger global status, there'd still be a pressure for immigration. Jews just happen to be on one side of immigration that we're pro-immigration, but it's not like if Jews weren't pushing for pro-immigration, there still wouldn't be greater pressures for immigration, saying like the tech companies and obviously like Indians who dominate IT and Chinese and manufacture and Koreans and manufacture the different fields that might make a coalition where they might for whatever reason have aligned with the Jews to ban voices like yours because anti-immigration sentiment also negatively affects them, or anti-multicultural sentiment also negatively affects them.
Yeah. So I am going to have to leave soon. I think you've made a very interesting case that I will want to study because I'm interested in an amicable solution to what has been termed historically the Jewish problem. But I'd like to ask you the question of where do you see America going in the next 40 years? What's your prediction?
I think America, to some extent, has to fight to remain the global empire because either we move towards isolationism, and the demographic challenges for so to say whites or Europeans will remain the same because there's not a high pressure. It's not like if we closed immigration and only opened it up to European immigration, like tens of millions of Europeans are all of a sudden going to move to America. There doesn't appear to be a large demand for Europeans to leave Europe to come to America. So even if somehow immigration was stopped, the demographic challenges would remain the same. And obviously the Hispanics or Mexicans, they're right on our border. That pressure is not going to go away no matter what we do, because there's a natural flow of immigration. So if there's some sort of move towards isolationism, it would probably mean the decline of America. And we might be able to decline, just not be as powerful, and still have a wonderful America, even without being this global military economic force. But I think that's unlikely. I think the pressure now is that America will do whatever it takes to remain the global power, and that likely is going to God forbid, it could lead to disaster, saying that there may be nothing we could do to remain being a global force, and all these different things that we're attempting to will in fact backfire. So it's very difficult to look at the situation it's very difficult for an empire to peacefully, disband and, get rid of our power, get rid of our military edge, and then maybe all the other people that we've used our military and global economic edge will, as they start surpassing us, will extract, so to say, revenge. So the situation on my end is pretty dire, and that's why I would lean towards globalism as the only answer. but a globalism I call multicultural conservatism that would preserve identities or blocks of areas that we might include Europe or parts of America where people could preserve their identities and have possibly even homogenous communities within a larger multicultural society. But I think it's going to have incredibly complex answers, and the answers are going to have to coincide with global forces. So the pushback from people like you who may not have studied these global forces might be counterproductive to the direction we're moving.
Well, it warms my heart to see you answer as an American and not necessarily as a Jewish person. But I'm also interested to know, in the next 40 years, do you think movements like the alt-right and attacks on Jews will grow? How do you think that will play out?
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems likely that anti-Semitism and movements like the alt-right are just going to continue to grow as economic times get worse, global pressure. So if what I'm saying that let's say President Trump and the Republicans move towards merit-based immigration, and that means you're not necessarily Hispanics coming, they built the wall, but it means high-skilled Asians, and there's such a huge population of high-skilled Asians that that's going to continue. The pressure to drive down wages, the deficit is probably going to continually make life in America harder for, so to say, the white majority population, as where, our parents had an easier time getting ahead and living out the American dream. That's going to continue to become more and more difficult. And that will probably continue to cause the rise of anti-Semitism, and it'll continue to cause more whites to go to movements like the alt-right. However, you're not just going to be up against the Jewish people. You're going to be up against the people that fully embrace multiculturalism, and that's going to be the multicultural bloc, and the multicultural bloc will include possibly half the white population, where you have a split between the white population that says like, I'm full for multiculturalism. Maybe like freedom, you have the choice to marry who you want, or you maybe choose what neighborhood you want, but fully on board with multiculturalism and globalism, versus the pushback from huge chunks of tens, maybe even 100 million plus white Americans that are anti globalism and multiculturalism, and presumably the Jews will become a target for the people that are opposed to that. And also the multiculturalism, because the ADL statistics show that whites are actually the least anti-Semitic of all peoples in America. So so the pushback from the Jewish people, as more and more immigrants in the multicultural coalition goes, they'll create room for more anti-Semitism, because people coming from other countries where anti-Semitism is quite high and are used to being able to say what you're saying. So you're a European American, heritage American that's used to not being able to say what you're saying right now, and suffering punitive punishment for opening for not being politically correct. These people coming from other countries are not going to be used to the political correctness, and they there might be a larger pushback on it. And so unfortunately, it looks like anti-Semitism is going to be rising from all sides.
Do you think with the rise of Antifa, do you think that there might be a communist play into this?
Well, I mean, Jews are naturally going to not, fight back on the rise of anti-Semitism, and because we're a minority population, God forbid if it came down to violence, we would almost certainly lose, because we're a minority population, and certainly, although we might have high IQs, certain things like physical prowess and eyesight. For example, I think of all the different things where statistically Jews score the worst on, it's eyesight or something like that. So I mean, so if it came down to actual violence, the Jews would be in a horribly bad situation. So we're probably going to keep on pushing as a defense mechanism, things like censorship, deplatforming, using technology to prevent people from organizing. And, you could just look at it and saying, what would you do if you were a Jew?
Yeah. Okay, that's a very interesting answer. Thank you. I have one more question. Let's just say it's the year is 1928, and you were able to have a conversation with Adolf Hitler. Now, this is kind of a selfish question. I may use this against people who are adjacent to me politically. if you were had to have a conversation with him for, you know, a lengthy period of time, what would be the general gist of your conversation in 1928? You know, before the Kristallnacht and all these actions against the Jews started. Is there anything you could have said to him that would maybe perhaps dissuade him from his actions?
Unfortunately, probably not. I mean, if you compare the situation right now, so you either had like the Zionist who might say like, yeah, you're right, the situation of the Jews in Europe doesn't look good, so let's negotiate that the Jews could safely move to Israel. And you see that voice here in America, like a lot of the people heavily supporting Trump or the right-wing ones that are saying, you're right, the future of the Jews in America is looking worse and worse, so let's look for a safe negotiation that will be able to move to Israel, which was one of the Jewish strategies. The majority Jewish strategy would be, we got to stop this guy. And, you know, that was the majority Jewish strategy, to say, I'm not going to be able to negotiate or talk with this person. We have to do everything possible to see to it that this person rises to power. And, you know, if it was actually like a negotiation and, you know, saying, you know, can we, balkanization appears to be the only answer. So if you're saying, you know, you want homogenous white areas and ethnic nationalism among, you know, European-based America, that there's really no way for the Jews to come to a compromise on that. So, you know, it's okay, maybe balkanization and come for you know, like Doovidism, where we have like a split off and like you guys are going to have a certain fragment of the area. And that's why you see the breakdown of these debates on the alt-right, where at this point there are, you know, the Halsey type debates between like Baked Alaska and Richard Spencer that you had a year ago, where you had a lot of Jewish people that were debating Richard Spencer and these various forces, have basically broken down, because the people who are interested in a white ethno-nationalism, there really is no negotiation. So unfortunately, you know, you're looking at the case where conflicting group interest does not seem to have a clear answer. That's why I said, what would you do if you were Hispanic? What would you do if you were Black? What would you do if you were Jewish? And then, you know, it's like a risk board or something. You've analyzed it and say, actually, I don't see a solution. I don't see a compromise. I don't think like the UN and all the leaders of the different forces, if we came to the negotiating table, I don't even see any proposals on the table that could solve this. And unfortunately, like Doovid is the chess player. That's the conclusion. Like, okay, I'm going to submit to God and, you know, just kind of pray and submit that something works out. But from a rational analysis, it appears that the conflicting interest is too great to come to some sort of compromise.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I enjoy your chess streams a lot, and I enjoyed this conversation a lot. I hope you have a great day.
Okay, yeah, you too. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your opinion. You know, saying hopefully I'll do more of these. You know, I'll be streaming more. And if you follow me on Twitter, I'm on different channels. And I hope and pray more Jews will come and have these conversations. But, you know, that's why I say put yours in your, so Doovid's a half Jew. So obviously that skews my opinion. But what would you do if you were a Jew? And you're saying, like, you might be doing the same thing we're doing and just saying we got to do everything to win in victory, even if it means if we lose, it's going to be absolute disaster. And, you know, so that's why I'm hoping to have these conversations. I'm hoping more leaders from the Jewish community or different voices will join in this, and we could, you know, somehow work out, is it possible that all of our common interests could, you know, be met in some sort of grand compromise moving forward. And, you know, that's the reason I'm doing this.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. Take care. Thanks for coming on. I'll put the link in the chat one more time if someone else wants to come on. You know, like, I only have like 15 minutes left, but otherwise I'm going to call it a day. You know, as I said, like, I'm here trying to have these conversations. Like, you know, we'll see if, you know, I could get people from the, you know, mainstream Jewish community will join these conversations. So far, a year of doing this, that has not happened. You know, so just kind of like me debating the most, you know, loud voices on the opposite side. Sometimes, like Brundlefly, when we first started, we looked at these demographics and issues, and, you know, maybe Brundlefly kind of determined that we're not going to be able to work out a friendly solution. But, you know, originally we had looked at these numbers, and I had all these streams on demographics and stuff like that. And like, I'm willing to do it. like I'm willing to talk to anybody because I believe in providence. But I want to have productive conversations. I don't want to just go over the same stuff again and again, or people to ask me to defend the most egregious parts of Judaism. And so Shabbat Shalom. Doesn't look like anyone's coming on. Sunday night on Church of Entropy, I'll have a regular weekend review, which is a productive thing. Constantly looking at what we're doing, where we're moving, and trying to make the best with our situation and improve these conversations so they're not just repetitive, or they could actually move in a positive direction. So like, interesting, I got 15, 16 people watching, more than I've had in the past, but I got to prepare for Sabbath, and we could postpone these conversations till next week. So take care, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. God bless everyone. Pray for a better world for everybody. I'll sing my quick Lo Isa Goy Al Goy Lo Karev Lo Yamadu Oy Melchama Lo Isa Goy Al Goy Karev Lo Yamadu Oy Melchama Lo Isa Goy Al Goy Karev Lo Yamadu Oy Melchama. That famous word from Isaiah, written on the UN: nation should not rise up upon nation, learn war no more, and all brothers should stand shoulder to shoulder in recognition of the same God. And it's almost miraculous. We talk about a messianic vision where all peoples will come together and work together towards the common goal. That I do believe it's possible, but from a logical, rational interest, like if everyone keeps on acting in their own self-interest, which seems biologically determinative that of course people are going to act in their own self-interest, that it seems almost impossible that we could come to this. So that's why I'm a believer. I'm submitted to the divine and think like, yes, God might save us and somehow help us chart a better path forward. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Take care.